Order, order. We now come to questions to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Ruth Cabray.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to you. It is great to be in a chamber that is 100% full strength after so many months. And if I may make a personal note without undue deference, Mr. Speaker, I thoroughly appreciate your remarks about standards within the chamber. Mr. Speaker, to date, HMRC have not initiated insolvency proceedings against any taxpayer for a loan charge debt. No estimate can be provided for the number of people who have fallen into debt or who have been declared bankrupt and are subject to the loan charge, because where debts arise, HMRC are not always the only creditor. Some individuals are declared bankrupt as a result of a non-HMRC debt, and some may choose to enter insolvency themselves based on their overall financial position.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know there are many, many thousands of nurses, social workers and other public sector workers who have been caught up by the loan charge. They took work via agencies who told them, basically, sign here or you don't get the work. Checking to see if they'd be liable for the loan charge actually wasn't an option. Last week, the Yorkshire Post reported that a number of former services personnel have been affected and one is feeling suicidal as a direct result. So what does the Minister say to this veteran and the thousands of other public servants whose lives have been turned upside down by this retrospective taxation?
Well, I thank the Honourable Lady for her question. Taxation is often a difficult matter for the relatively small number of individuals who may be affected by particular pressures. And, of course, the government recognises that and understands it. But it is nevertheless the case, it is indeed a foundational principle of the tax system, that people should be responsible for their own tax returns. And if I may, I'd like to refer the Honourable Lady to the very wise words of the former Shadow Chancellor, who said, we would, in 2018, in relation to the loan charge, we would obviously welcome tightening in the area of disguised remuneration schemes. We are concerned that the measures in this bill do not go far enough. There should be no excuse, these are her words, there should be no excuse for people not to be aware of the situation. I'm afraid she was right about that.
Shadow Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative government's approach to the loan charge means that ordinary people who are victims of mis-selling are suffering financial ruin and personal harm. Ministers will have heard some harrowing accounts of people pushed to the very brink and worse, some even tragically taking their own lives. This cannot be what the government envisaged, and a new approach is urgently needed. So will the Treasury now review the loan charge scheme and the approach of HMRC to prevent further devastating consequences?
Well, I thank the Honourable for his question, and of course, as I have said, both the Government and Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs take these cases extremely seriously, and that is why HMRC have put in place extra care and support for people who may be affected by tax issues of this and other kinds. But the fact remains that we have had a review, and I might refer the Honourable Gentleman to the words of his colleague, the member for Ilford North, where he said that of Sir Amias Morse, who did the review, that the review was a thorough piece of work, and we thank him. He has done a great service to Parliament and to the wider public debate. He was right about that, and the Labour Party has been right not to have opposed this policy at any point during its passage in Parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the problem that members have on both sides of this House is that ordinary people were duped into something, and it's effectively become a retrospective legislation. And I thought the way the Shadow Minister approached this was very reasonable. I do think that the way HMRC are approaching this is not the right approach. Perhaps you could look at it, perhaps the government could look at that again.
Well, I thank my friend for his question. I have mentioned the extra care support that HMRC have put in place. I have mentioned the extremely careful approach they've taken with people who may be facing the loan charge. As he will be aware, they have not initiated insolvency proceedings against any taxpayer for a loan charge debt. And that itself is emblematic of the care and attention with which they are taking this subject.
Samuel Wilson.
Okay. It's not enough for the Minister to say that people have to take responsibility for their own tax affairs, when the information that they were given by HMRC was that there was nothing wrong with these schemes initially, when HMRC passed and signed off tax years for people, and when the head of HMRC has admitted that in recent months he had repeatedly tried, this is a Freedom of Information request, and the outcome, in recent months I have repeatedly tried to obtain legal analysis to understand the strength of our claim, with very little success. So there is not even a legal standing for this. How then can the Minister say that it is right to pursue people for things that they were led into, and indeed for payments which HMRC were regularising by allowing contractors to use as a means of paying their employees?
Well, the Honourable Gentleman raised a whole bunch of different questions. Let me just address them. At HMRC, there were some contractors working for agencies and through agencies for HMRC, and where it was discovered that they had used disguised remuneration, those relationships were ended, and very strong measures have been put in place to prevent that recurrence, and that's an unfortunate feature of the extended way in which these contract arrangements sometimes work. I don't think there's any evidence that HMRC have signed off or positively approved the use of any disguised remuneration scheme, and if the Honourable Gentleman's got an example of that, he'd be welcome to send it to me. In relation to the Chief Executive of HMRC, I think he will be aware that the Chief Executive has specifically written to the APPG to clarify, to make perfectly clear that it is taking those remarks out of context, and what he was doing was putting, as every chief executive of a public agency should do, his own officials under some pressure to provide the justification needed, and rightly so.
Owen Thompson. Question 2.